Today, I'm going to be doing something a bit different, but mostly the same. I'll show you what I mean as we go along in the video, but first, I want to show you the cutest mold I found that is going to be perfect for what I'm making. It's a little hearted teacup mold, and it even comes with a plate mold so you can make a matching saucer. I did end up buying 2 of these molds just because of the cuteness. So today I'm going to be working with eco resin. I have here Boowannite Aqua Eco Resin, which was kindly sent to me to try, and what's interesting about this eco resin is that it actually comes with a liquid to mix with the powder. You don't use water. The bottle is half full, which I'll explain why in a bit, but they also included some pigments which I'm so happy to report that they actually work. At least they do with Boowannite. Now, the mixing ratio for Boowannite is 100 grams powder to 30 grams liquid, but because I'm making smaller pieces, I'm going to be working with smaller amounts. I'm mixing 60 grams of powder with 18 grams of liquid. The scale does say 19 grams, but I'm not too worried. I found that these eco resins are pretty forgiving if you're a couple of grams off. Let me know in the comments if you've tried Boowannite or any other eco resin. Now I'm going to mix this up until I get a nice smooth mixture without any lumps and clumps so I can mix in my color. I've decided to keep my teacups and saucers simple, and this first one I'm going to make yellow and the other I'm going to make blue. Oh, and before I forget, work time for Boowannite is around 10 minutes and you can demold your pieces after 30 minutes to an hour after you've filled your molds. I've got to say it, I'm really impressed with these pigments. If you've watched my other eco resin videos, you know that I've been having a hard time finding pigments that actually colors this stuff nicely without using the whole bottle of paint or pigment. I know a lot of it is because the base color is opaque white and the white really dilutes any color that's added, but with these you can see I just added the smallest amount and I have a gorgeous yellow. Okay, so I've mixed up some more mixture. Again, 60 grams powder and 18 grams liquid, and this batch is going to be for the blue teacup. I know I haven't shown you me filling up the teacups yet, and that's because I'm actually doing this in stages. First, I'm doing the little plates and hearts. I'm actually filling the little hearts with the colored Boowannite as well, which you'll see me do the blue once this plate is filled, but for the yellow, you didn't because I didn't hit the unpause button to keep recording. That was my bad, and honestly, considering how long I've been doing this, I should know better, but it is what it is. I blame Apple's new camera feature where you can pause mid-record. Anyways, now I'm going to take a pipette and fill in the little heart. Doing the little hearts separately from the teacups can be a little risky because it could come loose from the mold, but hopefully it doesn't. So now these little hearts are set and it's time to pop the mold back into shape, and I'm going to keep this footage real time so you can see how gentle I was. Thankfully the yellow stayed put, but the blue heart did detach a little from the mold, and all I did to try and fix it was I gently pushed it back into the mold. There is still a chance that when I fill these molds with the next go of Boowannite, the mixture will go in front of the little hearts. Especially the blue one since it did move, but if it does, it's okay because I can just paint the heart in afterwards. So now comes the Boowannite that's going to fill these teacup molds, and I won't be adding any pigment. I'm just going to keep it white, and this time I need more mixture, so I'm mixing around 180 grams of powder with about 54 grams of liquid. Going back to why my liquid bottle was more than half empty, and it's because this is actually the second time I'm filming this video. I originally made something else with Boowannite, which if I remember, I'll add a picture of what I originally made at the end of this video, but long story short, all my files decided to corrupt and I couldn't export my video. Unfortunately, these things do happen and this video is long overdue, but that's how I knew that these pigments worked so nicely. I also did receive some molds in the package, but with the amount of Boowannite I was left with from my first use, I wouldn't have enough to fill up those molds again. I will be doing a future video where I use those molds with epoxy resin because I think the pieces will turn out really cool, so stay tuned for that. But nonetheless, I'm still super excited about what I'm making in this video. Now I'm going to let everything cure up. I'm going to leave it about an hour since the walls of the teacups are thick, and I'll be back. All right, so it's been an hour and I'm gonna go ahead and demold these pieces. I will speed this part up because it did take me a long time to demold them, especially the teacups, because I wanted to make sure I didn't end up breaking the little handles. These smaller, thinner parts are pretty fragile when they're casted with eco resin. But I think all these pieces turned out really cute and I'm so excited to show you what I do with them. However, before we get to that, once these pieces are demolded, I'm actually going to leave these pieces sitting out to breathe for at least 24 hours because when it comes to eco resin, you want the moisture in the pieces to fully evaporate and dry before you do anything with it. If moisture is left in the pieces, there is a few things that can happen. For starters, it can make your pieces weaker. In case you didn't know, eco resin can break if it falls. It's a bit more fragile than resin, kind of like pottery, and if it still has moisture in it, it will make it more brittle. Another thing that's possible is that it can discolor your pieces when you add pigments. I know it's happened to me, and that's why you're meant to demold the pieces you make within the 30 minutes to an hour. Now, I'm not sure if it's the same with Boowannite since it has its own specific liquid to cure it. To be honest with you, I don't even know what the liquid is, but I'm still going to let these pieces breathe just in case. I did end up making my own makeshift stands for these pieces so they could air out, which I'll show you in just a bit, but I just took some plastic containers that I used to mix my resin, put holes in them, and then place the pieces on top. A baking rack would be ideal, but the ones I do have, I actually use in the kitchen. Now I'm going to let these pieces sit here to air out, and I'll be back tomorrow. It's been 24 hours and just before I hit the record button, I had a closer look at these pieces and they're ready for the next step, which is rubbing on some wax. So I'm going to take a soft sponge that I've cut up into smaller sections and dip it into the wax and rub it into my pieces. Now, the way I go by knowing whether the pieces are ready for wax or not is if the pieces feel cold and damp. In my experience, the pieces will feel cold usually, but if they feel slightly wet, then you need to wait until that wet, damp feel is gone before putting on your wax or sealer because it's a sign there's still moisture in them. And if you're wondering what the purpose of the wax is, it's to seal your pieces and make your pieces somewhat water resistant. Eco resin isn't waterproof and should not be submerged in water even if it is sealed, but if you seal it with wax or with a sealer made for this stuff, it can handle being quickly rinsed. Now I'm going to keep rubbing the wax on these and then we'll get to the final step. Okay, so now that these little teacups are fully made, do you remember the video where I said I think eco resin would be perfect for candle making? Well, that's what I'm doing with these little teacups. I bought the cheapest, best rated candle making kit and I'm going to fill these with wax and make my own little candles. This is something I've never made before and it's what I meant by today I'm doing something different but mostly the same. And by the looks of it, candle making seems pretty straightforward. There's these stickers that you stick onto the wicks to keep the wicks in place in the container you're using. Then there's these popsicle sticks with a little hole to keep the wicks upright for when it comes time to pouring in the wax. I know you can get a metal version of these popsicle sticks, which do look better to be honest. They're grooved so that they can clip to the edges of your container. These popsicle sticks I feel will slide around once it's time to pour in the wax. If I end up really enjoying candle making, I will have to pick up some of the metal wick holders and also pick up some wax dyes and scents to have a try. This kit I bought is very basic, but I saw other kits that comes with other accessories and even different types of wax. And lastly, there's the wax. In the kit, there wasn't specific instructions on how to melt the wax. It just says melt wax. So I just turned my stove on to low medium heat and let it melt, occasionally stirring the block of wax to help it, and then I just poured it into my teacups. Let me know in the comments if you've tried candle making. Now, with this first candle, I did make a tiny mistake and filled it fully, but thankfully, I noticed right away and took some of the wax out. You only want to fill your container 3/4 of the way up so that the popsicle stick or whatever you use to keep the wick in place doesn't get stuck in the wax once it's hardened. By the way, if you do decide to give Boowannite a try for candles, they do also sell candle making supplies like wicks and wax, and they even have a ton of molds made specifically for candle making. I even saw a mold where you can make an asparagus an asparagus shaped candle. Now that the wax is a bit hardened up, I'm going to remove the wick holders and I'm going to fill the rest of the teacups with more wax. There's no wrong or right way as to how much wax to put in a container, but I also really want to smooth out the wax in the yellow teacup so it doesn't look so crusty. Again, I've melted more wax and I'm just going to pour it in, then I'm going to leave these candles for a few hours so the wax fully hardens. Okay, so it's been a few hours and the wax is nicely set. It looks so nice and smooth. And now the final step is to cut the wicks shorter so I can light these candles. I don't know how short you're meant to cut them, but I'm going to go based on the length of the wicks of the candles I do have. And ta-da! I'm so happy with how these candles have turned out, and I really enjoyed working with the Boowannite. Let me know in the comments your thoughts, and I hope you enjoyed this video and that you've learned something. If you did, then please smash the like button, and if you'd like to see other videos I've done, then be sure to check out one of these ones. Thanks so much for watching. Bye!